And welcome to CBN News and our coverage of Election Night 2025. I'm Dan Andros. Polls are just now closing in New York City, and some key races that we'll be breaking down here tonight have already been called, including the race for governor in Virginia. As you're seeing on your screen right there, Abigail Spanberger has won that race over Winsome Earl Sears handily. So handily, in fact, it was called quite early. So we'll have more from that race coming up here. And joining me tonight on our panel, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody, and host of Navigating Trump 2.0 podcast, CBN's John Stolnis. And also joining us right now, radio host and commentator Stu Bergier. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Also coming up in a bit, we're going to have Nathan Gonzalez from Inside Elections and our CBN senior White House correspondent, Kelly Wright. All that coming up and more. Gentlemen, obviously, we had a race called early. We're looking at the numbers coming in for New Jersey governor. That's one of the other races we're going to be watching. The Virginia Attorney General, a very interesting race indeed, given what happened with Jay Jones and his text messages, that scandal, those horrible text messages coming out. Those results are coming in, which are really interesting right now. So, David, let me just start with you real quick. What is your reaction to what you're seeing early on here?
Well, I guess we have to start in Virginia. I mean, we know that is pretty much, it's been a thumping. That's what it is. It's a good old-fashioned thumping that Winston Earl Sears received tonight by Abigail Spanberger. There's no doubt about that. And as I look inside the internals, and believe me, I know I'm on Geek Squad patrol tonight, guys. I fully understand that. So I'll try to be brief. But, you know, one of the things I like to do is to look at what Youngkin did in 2021 compared to what Sears did this time around. And as I look at those numbers, it's just really mind-boggling here. First of all, in terms of the independent vote, Glenn Youngkin won 54% of the independent vote in 2021. Winston Sears tonight, 41%, 54 to 41. I mean, that's, you're not going to win that way. Just aren't. Now, what's also interesting here is on education. In 2021, it was the second most important issue. Remember, Youngkin ran on the education issue back in 2021. Tonight, it's fourth. So it went from second to fourth. So when you kind of look at it that way, you can understand exactly what's going on in terms of why it went south for Winsome Earl Sears tonight, because she staked her whole campaign on the education aspect, you know, boys and girls bathrooms and all of that type of stuff. It worked for Youngkin in 2021. It didn't work tonight at all. One last thing I would just say, in Fairfax County, which is the biggest, or it's the most populous county in the entire state, Abigail Spanberger had to do 60% plus in Fairfax County. Right now, she's at 73% inside Fairfax County. That's called a thumping, boys. And there's a lot more stats, but I think I'm done on the geek portion of tonight's program, at least off the top.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to get to here, and you know, John, let me hit you up here real quick. I mean, what do you make of that in Virginia? You're there in Virginia, so what's going on here?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks is what the candidates have been focusing on. And when Glenn Youngkin won in 2021, as David mentioned, education was one of the most important issues. And of course, you had a lot going on with the battle lines being drawn in schools with regards to boys playing girls sports and you know, locker room issues and all those the social issues, the woke issues that Republicans and Glenn Youngkin did a really effective job in helping independent Virginia voters come around to his side and to kind of say, we need to get a hold of this. Things are getting out of control. Well, that hasn't really been at the forefront here this time around in this election. This election has been about stuff costs too much. It's really hard to buy a home. I mean, it was really a lot of kitchen table type stuff. And I think you're seeing the independents, especially in Northern Virginia. I don't know how much this government shut down and furloughed federal workers who are in Fairfax County and Loudoun County and Arlington and Alexandria. These voters typically, these counties would typically very much go to the Democrats anyway, but this time around, even more so. David just told you the Fairfax numbers, the Loudoun County number which is one of the epicenters of where all the school stuff was going on 4 years ago. Back in 2021, with Youngkin, McAuliffe won 55-44. So McAuliffe won that by 11 points. But this time around, in Loudoun County, Spanberger got 64% of the vote to Winsome Earl Sears 35%. So again, like David said, just widening the gap in Northern Virginia. And we'll kind of see what the exit polls and what more people are saying about why we saw this shift. But I really do feel like these independent voters and these college educated voters who typically go for Democrats, but maybe went for Youngkin last time because some of that stuff was making them uncomfortable, came back to the Democratic Party here in Virginia, which is kind of where they want to go to begin with anyway.
Interesting. Before we get to you here, Stu, numbers are coming in early here, 36% on the New York mayor. Really early there, 51% for Mamdani and 39% for Cuomo. So we'll keep you posted on that. But Stu, your reaction to what happened here in Virginia and what's still happening with the Virginia Attorney General race here, which I'm just going to look real quick at the current numbers. But yeah, right now it looks like about 75% in, and Jay Jones has a 2.5-point lead here with just 25% left. So Stu, your reaction on Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an amazing result, a very good one for Democrats. Part of this, I think, is the fact that we've kind of grown into a country that is nationalizing a lot of these races. This is not a race, I think, that's a judgment on the Glenn Youngkin term for 4 years, which was received pretty well. He's pretty popular there and has done a good job. You'd think Winsome Earl Sears could just kind of ride those coattails from a role as lieutenant governor that doesn't really do all that much. But it just wasn't enough. I mean, this is an environment question, I think. And what you see here is an environment that is, first of all, the playing field, a lot of bluish states that we're looking at tonight. You see, of course, New York City, New Jersey, Virginia. Virginia is not really, I don't even think, a purple state. It's more of a light blue state. And in an environment like that, it has to be really positive for Republicans to take these types of states. And what you're seeing in this environment is the opposite, right? Like polls, people love to hate on polls, but polls give you generally a good idea of a range of outcomes, right? They don't give you the exact outcome. They don't give you every single, meticulous detail of what's going to happen, but they do generally give you a range of outcomes. And if you look at the range of outcomes that we saw in the polling leading up to Virginia, what we're seeing here in the gubernatorial race, for example, is a result that is toward the high side for Democrats. Some of the better results for Democrats were in the low double digits. We're seeing that there, which kind of makes you believe that the result for this attorney general race is going to be on the high side for Democrats. And kind of shockingly, those results fell for a slight Jay Jones, a close Jay Jones victory. And you think about something like that. How is that possible, right? Like, how is it possible that a guy who was joyfully thinking and fantasizing about the children of his opponents in physical pain and being held as they were dying by their parents so that they would change their opinion? I mean, how does somebody like that survive a scandal like that? I think the answer to it is a lot of politics now have really been nationalized. I mean, the old statement of every race is local, I think, is being overwon in an environment where, look, Donald Trump really is the center of attention, and he's not particularly popular in a state like Virginia or New Jersey or certainly New York City. So it's an uphill battle in these states, even in a normal environment. And then we have an environment that is also tilted against Republicans that we're seeing tonight. So the results are not promising, even though, Chitterelli did really well in the polls leading up to this. It's going to be a really tough environment for him to pull even that state off, I think.
Hey, Dan, just a couple of quick things. On Jay Jones, just to give you an idea of why it's tighter with Jay Jones beyond the scandal that obviously hurt him, even though he's still winning. Look at Fairfax County, right? We talked about Abigail Spanberger doing 73% inside Fairfax County, a liberal county in Northern Virginia. Jay Jones is doing 67%. So he's doing 6% less. He's underperforming as it relates to Spanberger. He's not doing as well. And that's why we're seeing, and you're seeing that in county after county. So that's part of the reason there. One other aspect, the evangelical vote's interesting tonight in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin, just to give you an idea, the evangelical vote tonight was about 29% of the entire electorate. In 2021, it was 27%. So it's roughly around the same or so. But Glenn Youngkin received 89% of those evangelical votes back in 2021. 89%. Winston Earl Sears tonight, 80%. So she's not getting that evangelical vote that she really counted on. I mean, she needed to do better than Youngkin's number tonight, and she's not even anywhere close. One last number to point out that Trump tonight in Virginia, according to the CNN exit polls, 55% had an unfavorable view of Donald Trump. And among those, back in 2021, Trump also had a 55% unfavorable view. Youngkin won 17% of those people that did not like Trump. He still won 17% of them. Tonight, Winston Earl Sears wins 7% of them. So you see how she continues to she did underperform compared to Youngkin in 2021.
Stu, go ahead, John.
I would just say, can I just add what I think might be the funniest nugget we're going to get out of Virginia here during the course of the evening?
Right. I didn't know there was going to be a funny nugget, but please.
Yeah, this is why you guys have me here. Surrey County, which is in the southeastern part of Virginia, went for Trump last year in the election, and in this election here for Virginia governor, it went for Spanberger, but also went for Jay Jones, 50 to 49%. So you have a county that just a year ago went for Donald Trump is now voting for the Democrat who put out these text messages that fantasized about killing the family and the children of the Republican, of a Republican state legislature, and yet that Republican couldn't win the attorney general's race in that county. So I think that goes to speak to just how nationalized this is, or just how weird Surrey County is, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Stu, I was going to follow up with you on the nationalized point, and it seems to be the case. But what is the big issue right now? Do you think that's, if it's being nationalized, is it just Donald Trump? I mean, because Donald Trump had a, pretty solid sized win, last year. So has it gone that far south in this year that now it's like everyone is shifted against Trump like that much? What is the issue that's driving this nationally?
I mean, it's too simple to say it's just Donald Trump, and it's not necessarily Trump's fault per se. I mean, I think what you typically see, particularly in a state like Virginia, is you have a presidential election. Whoever wins that election, usually the other party winds up winning the gubernatorial race in Virginia. At least that's how it's played out recently.
Yeah.
I do think that, remember, yes, Donald Trump had a win, but he didn't have a win in any of these states, right? He did. Right. He had a real big improvement in New Jersey. He improved in these areas over, his 2020 run. But these are not friendly areas anyway. This is an uphill battle anyway. And President Trump, for example, if you look at his approval ratings right now, in these states, he's underwater in these states. That's not a surprise, right? Like every Republican is going to be somewhat underwater. You could still win in close environments. But, Trump right now, and this is, of course, a nice favor of the media doing everything they can, is at his lowest point of approval rating right now of his second term. Now, look, there's a lot of ground to be, this is not the big election night, right? The big election night is going to be in a year from now. We'll all be talking, I'm sure, about, dozens and dozens of races. And we don't know how this will play out on a more friendlier ground. But when you have a president that isn't super popular in these states anyway, and you have an environment where this is uphill, even in the best circumstances. I mean, winning New Jersey, obviously Chris Christie did it. You occasionally, we've obviously seen Republican mayors before in New York City. We've seen, we have a current Republican governor in Virginia. But if you think about what 2021 was like, right, you're coming out of a situation where, you've got the Democratic candidate up on stage saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be able to, parent your own children," right? Like this is a totally different environment than we saw back then. So I do think that, I don't think it's certainly not just Donald Trump, but you have a situation where I think there is a people who are Democrats generally, but Republican curious are falling away right now. And the environment for them to cross the aisle is just not there. And I think, look, these candidates, some of them are pretty good candidates. I think Miaris, we've had him on the air on our show, and he's a pretty good candidate. I mean, this should be a race. Certainly, with this scandal, he wins easily. But you just feel like you're running through deep snow right now. It's just a difficult playing field for Republicans, and And you see that in these results. I mean, we were talking a little bit about this before the show started, Dan, but like an environment where, Ciattarelli wins in New Jersey is the same environment that we'd see a long delay from the closing of polls in Virginia to them calling that race. Like we would have 45 minutes of, I don't know, is she going to pull this off? Instead, it was almost an immediate call, right? And that environment, you place that into New Jersey, where it's already going to be pro-Democrat, going to be very difficult for him to come and overcome all of those hurdles.
Yeah. Oh, and this is, I was just going to say real quick, this is like a midterm, right? This is the off-year election. So, I mean, turnout's going to be an issue, right? I would imagine that these numbers are going to be far lower, obviously, than a main election year and even a midterm. So that's always an issue here. So, yeah, David, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, as it relates to New Jersey, we're getting some word here that Ciattarelli, we're getting some word. How about this? I'm geeking out and I'm looking at the numbers. That's the word I'm getting to myself. That Ciattarelli's underperforming tonight. He just is. I'm looking at the counties. First of all, Middlesex County, which, look, I'm from New Jersey. I will morph into an accent at some point during the evening. But Middlesex, New Jersey, which is next to New Brunswick, that's a key area for New Jersey or for Ciattarelli. He's got to do well there. And as I look at these numbers, in 2021, remember, he ran against Phil Murphy, as we all know, 4 years ago. He was polling 43% in Middlesex County. Tonight, he's at 35%. That's not good. That's not good at all. And to be clear, almost 75% or so of the vote is in Middlesex County. So that's that number's not going to change much. Bottom line is he's underperforming in the key county of Middlesex. Monmouth County, same thing. He was at 58% in 2021. Tonight, he's at 53%. He's down 5%. Ocean County, same thing. In the southern part of the state, he's down by 2% compared to his performance in 2021. So you just go down the list, and it's not good news for Ciattarelli, at least reading the vote tea leaves at this point, guys.
Yeah. Stu, I wanted to get your reaction here before you have to go here in a few minutes. I want to get your reaction on New Jersey, and then also we're seeing early returns here on New York. 43%, according to AP, of the votes counted so far. Mamdani at 50% and Cuomo at almost 41% right now. And actually, I'm just going to peek to see Slee was at 8%, which is interesting because, people were calling on him to get out of the race. And so interesting to think that I would assume a lot of those, well, who knows where a lot of them would go, but it might have been a lot closer than it currently is right now, 10-point difference. So Stu, give me your take on New Jersey real quick, and then we'll hit New York City.
Number one, Jack Ciattarelli is a good candidate for New Jersey. He only lost by 3 points last time he ran. He's got Jersey vibes. So, he really does. And he's a good candidate. He ran a good race and I think was really competitive here. It's just, I think, going to be an uphill battle for him tonight. It's going to be tough for him to overcome all this. Same thing, with Cuomo. Cuomo is the opposite of this. Like Cuomo has a lot going for him, right? He has an incredible amount of money. He has a Republican who, is being, you have a Republican president of the United States that has endorsed him and told his voters to go vote for Andrew Cuomo. And because Andrew Cuomo, unlike Jack Ciattarelli, is a terrible candidate and actually is doing an awful job, this should be a race he should easily win. He should have beaten Mamdani in the primary with everything he had going with him, with the financial advantages and all the other things. He couldn't do that. I don't think he's going to win here tonight. Dan, I like looking at these prediction markets as well, like Calcium Market, Poly Market, and I can kind of give you at least a breakdown of what things are looking like. And it's everything the Democrats would have wanted out of this evening. Mamdani's at 99%, as well. Spanberger, of course, has already won. Mikey Sherrill is at 98%. That doesn't mean for sure these things are going to happen. The votes all need to be counted. But when you look at this and you look at just the way this night is turning out, there is a real, this is going to send a message. And the message is Republicans have their work cut out for them. This is not going to be easy. I think a lot of times, conservatives, Republicans look at Donald Trump. They love Donald Trump. They love the stuff he does. They cheer him on. They love how he puts it in the face of the media and all those things. And those things can be really fun from day to day. We just don't know if that plays out to anybody outside his base. And, in 2024, he was able to connect with people outside of his base and say, hey, we need to be in here fixing these problems. This hits every single president when they get into office. It's really difficult to win that midterm. And this is going to give you at least a very big sign that if they don't do everything right for the next year, he could be looking at losing the House and potentially the Senate. You can't just project those things into the future. But I think these results tonight, while limited in scope, because again, these are blue areas. These are races Democrats should win. But it should at least get everybody to sit back and say, okay, we might love what's going on right now. We have to figure out a way to communicate the things that we love to the rest of the voters, or we're going to have a really difficult time come November 26th.
All right, Stu Bergier from Stu Does America and The Blaze. Also, you can hear him as co-host on the Glenn Beck radio program. Stu, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Stu.
All right, David, I want to get your take here. We talked a little bit on New Jersey. The New York mayor obviously is probably the big race that everybody's watching tonight. And it's your take on these numbers, 52% in now, and it just seems to keep inching a little closer.
It is
49.6 to 41.5. So what do we know about the counties? What's being counted? What can we see coming? And like Stu said, on the prediction markets, they've got this thing still as a mortal lock for Mamdani.
And I think he'll win, obviously. The reason it's not being called is because if you go inside the numbers, you look into Brooklyn. Okay, this is where Mamdani needs to do about 63% inside Brooklyn. I say I'm from New Jersey. Okay, until I was 9. Then I went to New York, and so I'm a New Yorker as well. So I hit everything. I went to Virginia, too. No, I didn't. No, I didn't go to there. Anyhow, he's got to do about 63%. Mamdani does in Brooklyn. He's at 59% right now. He's underperforming in Brooklyn. That's part of the reason why they're not calling this race. Also in Queens, he's got to be at about 57%. In Queens, that's another one of his strongholds. He's at 49%. So he's underperforming in both of those areas. Now, that normally would be great news for Cuomo. The problem is that, well, let me say it this way. If you're going to underperform in some areas, you have to overperform somewhere else. And in Manhattan, of course, the Big Apple, right in the middle there, the Mamdani folks wanted him to be at least 48%. Right now, he's at 52% in Manhattan. So he's overperforming in Manhattan. So yada, 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 get the calculator out, carry the 1 minus the 4. And then all of a sudden, you're getting into numbers that do seem better for Cuomo, but like a loss is a loss. I mean, you might lose by 7 instead of 12, but you still lost. I still think, I don't see how he gets there. I do think there'll be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking with Curtis Sliwa as it relates to if he was not in the race, could Cuomo have pulled this off? We'll see. We'll see what the numbers eventually show. But that's kind of my read at it now. And by the way, I agree with President Trump. I think Curtis Sliwa looks better without the beret, by the way. I just wanted to just go on record.
But is Curtis Sliwa really Curtis Sliwa if he doesn't have the beret on?
We don't know.
We don't know.
It's an unanswered question.
We can't know for sure. All right. Hey, let's bring in now Nathan Gonzalez with Inside Elections. Nathan, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it. So why don't you give us your initial take here? We've been chatting about this, the governor's race in Virginia called. Still got the key, the attorney general race still happening right now, still going on. And, of course, New Jersey governor and New York mayor. Pick the one that's sticking out to you the most right now and let us have it.
I think the word that comes to mind right now is decisive. So far, there's not a lot of ambiguity in the results. That whether it's, we got the Virginia results first, not a lot of suspense in the governor's race, a little bit more in the lieutenant governor and AG race, but now we know the results of those. And then now we're moving into New Jersey and watching specifically a race in the governor's race where we thought that was going to be closer. There's still, almost half of the vote left to be counted, but that looks like a decisive win for Cheryl. And when you look across the board, there's an overperformance for Democrats compared to those 2024 results. I appreciated earlier when Stu was talking about how these are Democratic-leaning states, but these are states where President Trump improved his margins. And so the question that I've had coming into tonight is, how well do Republicans do when President Trump is not on the ballot? And so far, the answer is not particularly well. And that's the answer. And that's the question that Republicans have to solve over the next year. And I think it's ironic that the best race for Republicans tonight might be the race where the Republican candidate is getting 8% of the vote. And I say maybe that's Republicans' best race, because if Mamdani ends up winning the race, I think Republicans will do everything in their power to elevate him as the head of the Democratic Party, and that fits into the narrative that Democrats are too far to the left, and they're too woke, and too all of these other adjectives. And so that looks like the silver lining coming out of this for Republicans, even though it's a race they're not going to win.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And as we were going to that point now, we got the word. AP has called Mikey Sherrill is the winner for New Jersey governor with 61% of the votes counted. Right now, it stands at about 57% to 42 and change. And, Jack Ciattarelli's had better performances in the past on it, but not his night tonight. So
this is bad.
Yeah. Dan,
that's bad.
It is. It's really interesting, too, because this is the first time since 1961 that one party held on to the governor's seat for 3 consecutive terms in New Jersey. And Governor Murphy is an unpopular Democratic governor. So it's very unusual that you would have now a Democratic candidate win. And it looks like she's still up 14 points with 61% of the vote in. She's winning this handily the way it looks right now. There's a lot of enthusiasm from Democrats for her and a lot of negative feelings for the incumbent governor. So it's an interesting set of results, and it really does make you think. Like, it doesn't have as much to do with the candidate themselves. I think we kind of saw this in Virginia too. Like, it does. How much of these results have to do with Spamberger, Winsome Earl-Sears, Mikey Sherrill, Jack Ciattarelli? Like, how much? It's kind of hard to gauge right now. The numbers seem to be telling us that they're just kind of the names, but it's really more about the Democrats versus Trump and the Trump Republicans. And it almost feels like these are proxy elections. And I think that is why this is kind of portending to the midterms, at least so far, even though these are kind of left-leaning Democratic states that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I know, to your point here, John, I know times have changed in the last, 15, 20 years. You're always going to have things change a little bit. But we were talking before we went on the air that I think it was, was it George Allen who had to drop out of the race because a tape of him saying macaca came up and nobody even knew what macaca meant. And he had to get out of the race. And now you have, Jay Jones sitting here, texting people saying, I think, and not just like a one-off, like he did this multiple times and he doubled down on this. And so to your point, John, about it almost doesn't even matter who they're throwing up there. It's just kind of like, because the ad, I live in the Bucks County area in Pennsylvania. So I hear all of the New Jersey ads on radio when I'm driving around. And the one Jack Ciattarelli ad that I thought they played it 100 million times. So it must have been the one that they thought was doing the best, but it was the clip of the Breakfast Club radio show, Charlemagne, whatever his name is, talking about her making $7 million on investments while she was in Congress. And she's like, she knew this was coming, but she still fumbled over it and was like, I might have made some money. I don't know. I'd have to look. And he's, and Jack Ciattarelli's like, who doesn't know that they made $7 million in investments? It was a very powerful and strong ad. But apparently nothing matters. I'm not saying one ad can turn it, but it is interesting. And, David, maybe your thoughts on that. It does feel like these things are nationalized, and it, you just weather the storm, whatever you've done in the past. Just put your head down and keep going.
Yeah. Well, in today's politics, everything's nationalized for sure. I think Nathan hit the nail on the head. Overperforming. That's the story tonight with Democrats. They're fully overperforming. I'm looking at Middlesex County in New Jersey tonight, down in that New Brunswick area, in that central part of the state. Well, it's really north central part of the state. And Phil Murphy did 55% back in 2021 in Middlesex County. Mikey Sherrill tonight, she's doing 62%, almost 63%. That's an 8-point difference over Phil Murphy. My goodness. And Jack Ciattarelli is just underperforming everywhere you go. So look, I think what we're seeing here is that you've got what's the common denominator between Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, and of course, let's be clear, they're two different states, two different climates, two different electorates, to a degree. But the candidates have something in common. They both have military tie-ins. They also are both, some will call them moderate. What you call them, whatever you're not. What they are definitely not is far left. They're not AOC. They're not Rashida Tlaib. They're not anywhere near the squad. And so this could be the template for Democrats. Rather than thinking, look, the far left and our policies there or their policies are going to get us somewhere, and that this is a mandate for far leftism, if you will, in the country. I think they'd be wise to think about who they're running in these states and realizing that center left candidate could get you some mileage and get those independent and swing voters out, because they're doing a heck of a job tonight in both New Jersey and Virginia.
Well, and just real quick, it makes me think, guys, and I'd love your reaction to this. It makes me think of Gavin Newsom, because what has Gavin Newsom been doing in the last several months, maybe year? Going on different podcasts with conservatives and trying to move just that way a little bit. He's not going to the far left side of things. He's going that other way. So, but yeah, whoever was going to jump in, feel free to go for it here.
No, I was just going to say that it feels like, in the words of Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again, because both Spanberger and Sherrill were part of that 2018 class of Democrats who came in to the majority in President Trump's first midterm, in his first term. And now here they are on different platforms, but still elevated kind of as part of the Democratic comeback, or Democrats trying to regain some ground. And so I was just going to say that it's not just these races that we're talking about. There's also two races in Georgia. These are Public Service Commission races, but two Democrats won two of those races. They haven't won a non-U.S. Senate, Biden won one. They haven't won a non-U.S. Senate office in Georgia in 20 years. And so it's, we're seeing the depth of this across the board. And I don't think it's necessarily specifically a referendum on Trump, but he has helped, by being president, he has created an environment, I think maybe an environment of uncertainty still economically, where particularly independent voters, they're still looking for stability. They're still looking for security. And I think that's why they're searching for which party or which candidate is going to deliver that security to them.
If I can I just quickly say something about Virginia? The Republicans might like to say, oh, okay, well, Virginia, a lot of federal workers in Virginia, and that's the reason that her numbers were kind of through the roof tonight. I don't buy that. I think that's part of the reason, but that's not the full reason. And I think that, this idea that that's the only reason. It'd be one thing if she won by 3, 4, 5 points. I mean, it's a thumping tonight in Virginia.
It's going to be a record breaker.
Yeah, it's more. It's more than that. It's way more than that.
My question on the Virginia race, because Winsome Earl, it's not like she had a big gaffe that I'm aware of. I don't remember seeing some, ridiculous dropping of the ball. Why did she not get more support from the Republican establishment?
Well, and Donald Trump did not specifically endorse her.
Yeah.
Donald Trump endorsed, he in his Truth Social post, I think it was something a little over 50 specific people who were running in races tonight, and she was not one of them. Now, was that because that she didn't really that he didn't consider her a part of the MAGA movement, or that he wasn't impressed with her, or was it their decision? Was it the Earl Sears campaign saying, listen, we need Northern Virginia, we need these Northern Virginia counties. You're not popular in Northern Virginia right now, so he did some tele rallies and some other phone calls and rallies for Republicans in Virginia, of course, of which she is one, but he did not specifically name her and endorse her, because and I again, I don't know where that was coming from. I can make an argument for both sides, right? That she was not a dynamic personality on the campaign trail. She didn't capture hearts and minds. She wasn't as good a communicator as Glenn Youngkin was. Glenn Youngkin was an outstanding communicator, and he was hitting a message that everybody wanted to hear in that moment. And she didn't have as strong a message. She just didn't have one.
So can I just say quickly, Nathan, I'm sure you want to jump in. I just quickly will say this. She was a one-trick pony. It was all about education and the schools, but been there, done that. Youngkin did that in 2021, and he rode it to victory. She tried to do the same, and it didn't work.
Right. In terms of there, like it doesn't hit the same when it's the Republican in there, right? Like, I'm going to fix this from him. It's just a weirder message.
But also the reason that Trump, let's be honest, the reason that Trump didn't endorse Winsome Earl Sears is because in 2022, Winsome Earl Sears said it's time to move on from Donald Trump. And so that's the reason. I mean, I think the word might have been liability. She called him, I believe, a liability or something along those lines. I'll have to get the exact word. But she said, it's time to move on. Thanks for your service. Goodbye. And he didn't forget that.
Mm. And I think President Trump also, he wins, right? He doesn't lose. And I think he saw the writing on the wall, and he did not want to be connected to a candidate who's going to lose and didn't want to have anyone blame him for the loss. So he just went as close as he could to it and without endorsing. And so he doesn't have to take blame. But I want to also say, David, you started to talk about a really important point that in these next few days, we have to do something very dangerous, and that is listen to the politicians, because what the parties learn, what lesson do the parties learn from these results? Because that matters almost more than what actually happened. Hopefully they'll listen to all of us digest the results over the next few days, but what takeaways do the parties have, and what corrections or what behavioral changes do they make? And so that we just have to listen. And if Republicans look at all this and they say, wow, we thought President Trump's agenda was more popular, maybe it's not as popular as we thought, and they do some course correcting, or they just say, you know what, there were some bad candidates. These are Democratic states. Republicans could dismiss it and just continue on the path. And that, I think, is a riskier proposition for the party based on what we see tonight.
All right. And Crutch. Okay. Yeah, breaking news here in New York. They have called the race now with 75% of the vote in, and Zohran Mamdani has won the New York mayor race with 50% of the vote, 50.4% of the vote right now to 41.3 to Cuomo, and Sliwa there with 7.5%. And so there you have it. I mean, we were kind of expecting that, although that's about where the polling was, right, guys? If I didn't look at the very latest polling before this thing went in, but it was right about that, wasn't it? Around 10 points or something like that, 8 or 10 points.
But I tell you what, I think there's going to be a lot of second guessing about Curtis Sliwa tonight. What's the percentage? What does he have? About 7%? Yeah, 7.
Yep, 7.5. Yeah.
All right. So you add that to Cuomo, but I know that, and Nathan, you'll say, yeah, that's not exactly how we do it, right? I mean, I know. But having said that, if Sliwa had gotten out of the race 2-3 months ago, or even a month and a half, 2 months ago, I don't know. I know there's early voting, but you can make the argument if he's out by June, July. I mean, everybody saw the Mamdani train coming since August. So, you wonder if Sliwa had gotten out, if Cuomo could have at least made this too close to call. I don't know, Nathan. What do you think? Or not that it matters. It's hindsight's 2020.
I'd look at it a different way. If it had been any other candidate except for Cuomo, they probably win this, right?
Yes,
I mean, Cuomo comes with so much baggage, and he's still doing pretty well. If it had been any other, former Democrat turned independent, they probably win. They probably win this race. And so, but candidates matter. And David, you were talking about Spanberger and Cheryl and their veteran background. Today I met with 5 Democratic candidates running for the House. 2 of them are veterans. One of them, Joe Mendoza, running against Juan Ciscomani in Arizona, was one of them. Kate Conley running against Mike Lawler in New York, probably 20 miles from the city. And so Democrats, what we're going to see over the next few days, Republicans are going to focus on Mayor-elect Mamdani. Democrats are going to focus on their other candidates, basically all of their other candidates that aren't the mayor. And that's going to be one of the fights over the next, weeks and over the next year.
Well,
I wanted to get Nathan, before Nathan has to run here, I want to get your final thoughts here on the evening so far, Nathan.
Yeah, I think the only thing we haven't touched on is California coming up with Proposition 50. If anything is like the rest of the, what we've seen so far, Proposition 50 is going to pass, with a wide margin. That helps neutralize what Republicans are trying to do with redistricting in Texas. But I would give overall still a net advantage to Republicans because on redistricting and the fight for the House, because they are still able to draw new lines in more places than what Democrats are.
All right, Nathan Gonzalez, Inside Election. Sir, thank you so much, as always, for stopping by. I appreciate your insights.
Fun time. See you guys.
All right, take care. All right, I mean, big, as he was saying, decisive night for Democrats so far in states that, as Stu was mentioning earlier, and as Nathan mentioned as well, these are states that you expect Democrats to do well in, often win, particularly New York City. But still, it's underperforming, which is the red flag here for Republicans.
In some of the numbers I've been seeing in exit polling, there is some underperformance among the Republicans, but I think, as David has alluded to, it's overperformance by the Democrats and independents who are turning Democrat. Chitterelli has about the same vote total as he had 4 years ago, but the Democrat, the Democrat here is lapping him, and there's the numbers that Cheryl is generating here tonight are far exceed what Murphy did 4 years ago. So, I think that's where this is. It's overperformance by Democrats, and Republicans are just kind of where they were last time around.
I think if you're a Democrat operative tonight, you're very happy. That goes beyond saying. But I think you need to start drawing up the PR strategy going forward, and the PR strategy is very simple. I'm talking about the internal PR strategy of what you're talking about at the coffee table, at 12:15 a.m. on a Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. And that is more of this, please, as in moderate center left candidates. That's going to get you back in the game. We saw it tonight in New Jersey and Virginia. Now we wait to see who they run, exactly how this goes in 2026, because I think the most excited person tonight in America could be Andy Beshear down in Kentucky. I mean, this is a guy, as we've talked about here, guys, that is itching to run for president. He's thinking about it. He's got a big time family name down in Kentucky. He's a moderate, and the other person that's thinking about it tonight is Gavin Newsom, saying, now let me think, who should I be tomorrow? Should I be a moderate or should I be a liberal? And if he's smart, he'd be a moderate tomorrow. And so I really do think that is part of the storyline going forward. Will Democrats get the message that this isn't about Mamdani in New York? That's an outlier. That's a one-off. That's going to be a separate storyline, a separate track as to whether or not socialism / communism / Marxism, call whatever you want, wins or loses or fails or succeeds in New York. That's totally separate. That is not the future of the party. New York is a separate bastion. But what happened in New Jersey and Virginia is the story tonight, because those are states that Trump actually did much better in 2024 than he did in 2020. And so I think that's important to understand tonight.
Hearing him double there, by the way, Crutch, hearing myself double there.
I enjoy hearing myself often.
Yeah, we're hearing the echo. But if you're just joining us here, a couple of the races here, the big races that we've been watching, have been called. The one that has not been called, the Virginia Attorney General race, which is kind of the biggest shocker, because if you're not familiar, Jay Jones had this big texting scandal saying some pretty horrific things about his then political opponent at the time, saying that they needed to suffer a personal tragedy. His kids needed to be killed in order for him to change his views on things. And he's winning right now with 82% of the vote in, 51.6 to 48% right now is where it stands, slightly updated from that number there. But very close, considering Mieres is the incumbent there. And David, what do you make of that?
Well, it's not surprising as well. I mean, this is the outlier for Democrats tonight. I mean, though no one's going to be saying, well, wait, you're not going to hear Republicans say, yeah, but look at Jay Jones. He had a close race. No, you're not going to hear that because that's not the storyline tonight. I mean, he has his own problems, as you alluded to earlier with the texting scandal. And that's why he's way behind what Abigail Spanberger is doing across the state. So that's not surprising. My sense of it is that these numbers won't really move too much. I'll have to look specifically at some of the counties that are still yet to report fully, but I don't think it's going to change much. And my guess is he's probably going to hang on, guys.
interesting what you were talking about before with the radical left side of the party, and that is this going to be the future of the party? And I think, as you're saying, the Democratic establishment is going to see what is happening tonight and saying we need more of this. But I think the issue is the radical left wing of the Democratic Party. I don't think they're going away quietly into the night. I mean, remember, you've got the AOCs of the world, and these are the ones with the big social media platforms, and they're the ones that can basically rally people at any given notice because they've got a huge audience. So are we going to see a big fight? Kind of, I would say maybe somewhat similar to what we're seeing on the right now, with people arguing, and you've got some of the extreme elements of the right, the Nick Fuenteses of the world, be gaining more in popularity. Are we going to see the same sort of phenomenon on the left? John, I'll throw that to you. Yeah.
I think we've been seeing it, right? I mean, the rise of Bernie Sanders in the last couple of presidential cycles has kind of put a however you want to say, but a pleasant face on socialism, right? I mean, most people's perception of Bernie Sanders, who are not Republicans and conservatives, is, oh, he's kind of funny. He's like a grandpa, he's he talks about wanting to, help the poor. I mean, it sounds great. And so, but you've seen the Democratic Party a couple of times now has gone out of their way to try to do everything they can to keep Bernie Sanders from being the Democratic nominee for president. It's happened a couple of times now. And there's going to be kind of like that firewall in the party, I think, that is going to try to stifle that on larger races. I mean, when you're talking about New York City, it's a huge city, obviously, but it's a mayoral race. It's not a statewide race. And certainly not a nationwide race. And I think Democrats are going to see these results here in New Jersey and in Virginia and say to themselves, we need to, and we've kind of seen public opinion moving this way too. We need to kind of get back to where things were 10 years ago, 15 years ago in the types of candidates that we're putting forward. And it's this was instructive, I think, for the Democratic Party. I mean, there's going to be some places where the AOCs, where the Mamdanis, where these folks have a place. Right. It's going to be in certain pockets of the country, but I don't think it's going to be a nationwide thing. I don't think it's going to be I think it's far more likely the moderate wing of the Democratic Party has a larger influence in the midterms than the far left does.
I think you're absolutely right, John. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, David. I just wanted to bring in CBN senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright. Kelly, thanks for joining us tonight, and wanted to get your reaction here to the races that have been called and how things are unfolding. What are you seeing?
Well, I see a sea change in the city of New York, and certainly I've seen history made there with Mamdani being elected as the mayor-elect. There's also a change going on historically in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where Abigail Spanberger becomes the first woman ever elected to the highest office in the Commonwealth, becoming the 75th governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And then if you look over in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, who actually had served in Congress with Abigail Spanberger back in 2018, they were friends, and now she becomes the governor of New Jersey, the governor-elect for that state. So 3 major Democrat wins in some very important areas. What does that look like for the midterms? We don't know. It's still too early to tell, but it is something that Republicans should take note of. And Abigail Spanberger stating that she is actually building a state where it will be Virginia first, kind of taking something out of Donald Trump's playbook of America first. She's saying Virginia first. And she wanted to say we'll have a leadership that is pragmatic and not partisan, sending a shot over the bow to the president of the United States. And she says that she also graciously reached out to Winsome Earl Sears, who, if she had been elected, would have become the first woman to be elected, is also the first Black woman. That is not to be seen. Abigail Spanberger reaching out to her, graciously complimenting her, stating that she ran a good campaign, but also reaching out to those voters who actually cast their votes for Winsome Earl Sears and saying, I am basically, she said, I'm the governor for all of Virginia and all of the voters of Virginia. And I thought that was very telling as well in trying to move the ball forward. I think what's surprising, I heard some of you talking about it on the Attorney General side, the fact that Jay Jones actually won against Jason Miyares. And it's surprising because of what Jay Jones did and said, and how he did not withdraw from the race, but continued to stand his ground in that race, publicly apologized for it during the debate against Jason Miyares, stating that he would do his best to be the good attorney general. But what really surprises some people outside looking in is the fact that Virginia actually voted for Jay Jones with all that he said, and with the political speech and rhetoric that he stated about wanting to see someone die. And in fact, talking about the children of the Speaker of the House. So, when you look at this kind of situation and you see the vitriol that was involved in his campaign, the fact that he still won, that says something as well about where we are in our politics of the day. Nationwide, a lot of people are looking at this and saying, let's move on. What's next? Let's get back to the government shutdown and get everything working again. But for a moment, we have some moments of reflection. Why did the Democrats pull off these races? Was it a referendum against the president of the United States, Donald Trump? When you look at the fact that Jason Miyares is no longer the attorney general, he was actually campaigned against by Jay Jones, saying that Miyares would actually be someone who would actually respond to Donald Trump. The same thing with Winsome Earl Sears, although she did not receive an endorsement from Donald Trump. And then you look over in New Jersey, and I think my good friend and colleague David Brody attested to this fact, that because Jack Ciattarelli was so closely affiliated with Donald Trump, did that hurt him? Did Donald Trump hurt Cuomo today in that election with Mondami? Of course, Mondami was someone who was actually able to capture the affordability mantra, and as a result of that, attracted a lot of young voters and even some African American voters in Brooklyn, the most populous area of New York City. He did not do so well in the Jewish vote. Many of the Jewish people voted against him, not trusting him because of some of the stance or the failing to stand against Hamas and against other things that have been going on. So I think we have a moment to reflect. And I think, as we heard Nathan talk about, members of politics, members of Congress will have a moment to reflect. And for one fleeting moment, we will be listening to the politicians in terms of what they have to say and what's going to go on behind closed doors when they start planning for the long fight that's going to come up for the midterms and ultimately looking at 2028.
Yeah, a lot going on. If you're just joining us, it has been pretty much a dominating night for the Democratic Party. Again, as we said, in states that, you typically expect Democrats to do well in, but it's the fashion that they're doing it in tonight that has pretty much sent apparently a message tonight, at least to put Republicans on notice here. As Kelly was just saying, it's not the midterms yet, but that is the next big stop on the election map. And while AP has not called the Jay Jones, Jason Miyares race, some other networks and some other outfits are calling it right now. And it is a 4.5 point difference right now with 85% of the vote in. So we'd expect AP to call that here any moment for Jay Jones. The one race that perhaps I think Republicans maybe thought they had a good chance in tonight, but it didn't turn out that way. And David, really nothing has turned out the way that Republicans have wanted wanted it tonight.
No, no. I think going forward, we're on a dual track situation here. So what do I mean by that? You've got Mamdani in New York, and we've got the socialist / communist, whatever you want to call it, vibe, and see if his policies fail or succeed. That's the one track. That's the far left. AOC is cheering uncontrollably tonight. You've got that track. The other track is the big story tonight, which is what happened in New Jersey and Virginia. Two center-left candidates, some would call them moderates, call them whatever you want. The point is they're not Mamdani, that's for sure. They're not far left. So you've got that track going on. Call it the moderate track, the center-left track. And so we now go towards 2026 with these two tracks, and now we're going to have a track record in the next year. What is New York going to look like in a year from now? What is New Jersey and Virginia going to look like? And will the Democrat Party decide to run more of those center-left candidates in the midterms? I think that will be crucial. And so this is a great night. It's not a good night for Democrats. It's a great night for Democrats. And you can make the argument, if Democrats get the message that center left is the way to go rather than far left, then it could be a great night, not just for Democrats, but for America, because we need a healthy Democrat Party in this country. We need a healthy Republican Party. We need a two-party system that's really working for the people. And for the Democrat Party to get back to their roots, that's a good thing for America, not just the Democrat Party.
Yeah. And I think it was Nathan who said it earlier, John, that Mamdani winning, while we'll see what happens with the policies there in New York City, Republicans are going to zero in on this, right? Like they are going to make this, they will make him the face of the Democratic Party, whether he wants to be it or not.
Right.
We talked about this on a recent Navigating Trump 2.0 podcast. They've already started that. They have been doing this for the last couple of weeks. That's what they're trying to do. They want to make him. They want to put him front and center, because I think you're right. I think they do. The way Democrats move forward here is by shifting more towards the center and not going to the left. And I think Republicans know that that's the direction that Democrats are going to start heading in. So they're trying to head him off at the pass. No. This is your guy. This is look. I mean, this you tried running an independent and a Republican against him, and he beat them both. Like this is the future of your party. The Democrats are going to try and put the brakes on that. That's why you didn't see a lot of mainstream Democrats effusively supporting and endorsing Mamdani. The ones who did, who kind of were more center left than far left, if they did offer an endorsement, it was tempered. It was somewhat muted, and so that I think that's because they see where this is heading. And there was a stat I saw on CNN this morning that over the last 90 years, there have been 5 instances where Democrats swept the New York City mayor's race, the Virginia governor's race, and the New Jersey governor's race, right? 5 times the Democrats have swept all of them. In all 5, over the last 90 years, Democrats have gone on to take control of the House in the midterms. So if this past is not necessarily prologue, right? I mean, it's what happened over the past 9 decades doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen in 2026. But you can kind of see why it's happened 5 out of 5 times, because the general mood of the country is heading in this direction. And it sounds as if Democrats may be starting to wisen up and realize we need to take this party from the far left and move it towards the center. And the Republicans would be wise to do the same thing.
Yeah. Kelly, let's get your final thoughts here on what we're seeing this evening.
Pragmatism has a lot of value in politics, and it would be wise for both parties to start moving towards, how about this, the American people, in order to form a more perfect union, which is to complete our goals and making sure that we can get beyond the impasse of a government shutdown. Okay, so tonight, there were politics, electoral politics. And now the American people are saying, okay, good. You elected a governor in New Jersey. You elected a governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You elected a mayor in New York. And there's some history in all of this, because you've got the first woman becoming governor in Virginia. You've got the first Muslim American becoming the mayor of the largest city in America, with 2 million people who voted That's the largest voter turnout since 1969, by the way. And then also on the ticket in Virginia, you have the first woman to become lieutenant governor in Hashmi, who is from India, Muslim as well. So you've got a growing dichotomy going on. You actually see Muslim Americans becoming more politically active. And then you reflect on New York City and the fact that Mamdani is now going to be the mayor with no experience, by the way, 34 years old. So he's going to have a powerful learning curve. And you're right, he might be used as the poster boy for what could go wrong in Democrat politics. And Republicans can look at that. But I think the American people are on the outside looking in saying, can somebody just do something to make sure that my government paycheck is on time and it pays me for being an air traffic controller? It pays me for being a member of the military. It pays me for being a federal worker, and not dividing me on politics, but uniting me to serve the country. And I believe going forward, both parties and the president need to get it together and really put America first by helping Americans first.
Well said. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. David Brody, John Stolnis, Kelly Wright. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Also, thanks to Nathan Gonzalez and Stuber Gear, who joined us earlier in the hour. There was a lot to break. We didn't really get to the California because they haven't, they're still, I think their polls are still going right now, so we haven't seen the results yet. It's California.
It's going to pass.
It's going to pass.
Whenever they can get to it. Don't worry, guys.
Whenever they can get
Spoiler
to it.
alert.
I mean, time zones, schmime zones, whatever. But I appreciate you all watching along, and stay tuned to CBNnews.com and the CBN News YouTube channel. We will have more updates as results continue to come in on this and more, and all the rest that's going on around the world. Gentlemen, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. God bless you all. Have a good night. See you next time.